Remember that Battlestar Galactica episode, which was a grand metaphor for indentured servitude of the Irish people in the 1800s?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's just racism.
Who calls me from out of the pit?
Did a genius from another world design the pyramids? Is there evidence of a prehistoric airfield in the Andes? And what about the giant stone faces that brood over Easter Island? All over the earth, the evidence is there. For an intriguing, fascinating, mind-opening experience, see Chariots of the Gods, rated G.
I'm Paul,
I'm Mark.
and welcome to another Tuesday night edition of The Return of the Son of the Show, where we're going to talk more about the original Battlestar Galactica series, specifically the first mini movie and some of the straggling episodes that come after that.
Correct.
But before we do that, if you like our channel, you like our content, don't forget to do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you don't miss a single video.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about Lost Planet of the Gods.
Gotcha.
By whom?
By Glenn A. Larson, the creator, and Donald Belisario, who pretty much wrote most of the episodes for the TV show.
So it seems, yes.
Yes. Of Quantum Leap fame and many other things.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah, Lost Planet of the Gods. I think we get, and this is one that just stands out in my memory from being a kid, especially part two, the whole Egyptian, the Egyptian planet of Kobol.
Oh, that's why it stands out in your head. Not all the.
Oh no, of course
Okay,
not.
so
Oh
it's
no.
Egypt.
Yes, of course, the
Yeah.
Egypt mythology. It wouldn't be the bevy of young female star pilots that they have to have because the men are sick. No, of course not. No.
But like you said though, in this episode, they all the male pilots get sick because
Yes.
they picked up some kind of space virus,
Mm-hmm.
and so they had to take all these green recruits who were all the women on the Galactica apparently, and
Yeah, oddly enough, they keep calling them shuttle pilots, but I don't remember any
yeah,
of them flying a shuttle. I think it was just whoever was available and just happened to be female. So
yeah.
kind of like the
I don't think shuttles played too
yeah.
heavily. I mean, it makes sense they would be shuttle pilots,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, we so far we're like 4 or 5 episodes in and haven't seen a single shuttle.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Comes later,
yeah,
probably maybe.
maybe.
Yeah. So no, so they they get the deadly virus that seems to be killing all the men or about to kill all the men, so they put them in cryo freeze, and then um so there's a mini episode where they have to go back to where they think they contracted the virus to try to get a sample.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that part of the plot, but then at the same time they're advancing beyond their known universe,
Yeah.
and they find the ancient planet of Kobol,
Mm-hmm.
which turns out to be Egypt. Or turns out to be like outside stock footage of Egypt.
Through the magic of editing.
Yes, and some sets from The Mummy Returns or something.
Yes.
Yeah. I just remember loving this episode. So it's got, I do enjoy. It's got Baltar in it, which I think was, he advances his purpose becomes a little more clear.
Yeah.
So his role of pursuing them under Lucifer becomes more clear. His relationship with Adama.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was kind of shocked at all the Indiana Jones traps that are in the Egyptian temple, and them finding their way. It's a little, it's a weird mix. I guess it's that weird '70s pyramid power, mixed with Glenn A. Larson's Mormon background.
Yeah. Well, it's like we
so,
talked about before. We were so
Yeah.
hung up on the Egypt thing
Yeah, yeah.
because Egypt was everywhere.
Yes.
And as kids, we were fascinated by mummies.
Correct.
So we didn't know what. I mean, I didn't know what a Mormon was.
No.
I didn't pay any attention.
No, and it wasn't like Egyptian mythology and sci-fi was new because by then, by the time this aired, I would have seen Sutekh in the Fourth Doctor's episode. So
Oh
I would
yeah,
have seen
yeah.
the whole the Pyramids of Mars episode. So, and I was all about that episode. So yeah, I ate up this stuff as a kid. I ate up
Mhm.
the whole mythology stuff. Um, and so yeah, I like that part of it a lot. And I think it works. At first, I didn't think it worked well as a standalone movie because I thought the plots were too interconnected. But then at least they had the women have to rescue Adam and everybody from
Yeah.
the planet, so it did tie up nicely in the end.
Yeah. This was one of the movies that was scheduled.
Correct.
Yeah.
This was shot as a movie, so it makes sense as a complete little little movie.
Mhm.
Which it's too bad that they couldn't have kept that going because I think that's what it would have worked best as. So save it when you've got enough plot to make a 2-hour story. You save your money.
Yeah.
You can put all your money in your special effects because I mean there were a lot of really, like I said, the traps were kind of neat,
Yeah.
kind of Indiana Jones before Indiana Jones, and so
Well, the production quality was extremely
oh
high
yeah
by comparison to the what we watched tonight.
correct
But we'll get into that in a minute.
yeah, and of course this I mean probably what's I guess it didn't stand out to me until just now, but the death of Serena, of course, and the adoption of Boxy
Yeah.
by his father.
Yeah.
So yeah, the death of Serena because they couldn't afford to keep her
Yeah.
in the TV show.
She's laying there. What about those cryo chambers?
Yeah, right.
The pilots are. You're too long, Dr. Quinn, medicine woman. We can't keep keep you here.
You're making live and let die money. We can't afford that. If we do that, then we got to have the more of the same fighter ships over and over again, flipped around backwards. So yes, I must die to save the television show.
Yeah.
But
well, this is one of my favorite episodes.
It is mine too. Yeah,
I remember it vividly from when I was a kid for all the same reasons, all the Egyptian stuff, and it's just you can tell it was planned well in advance.
Yeah,
they had it wasn't like the TV grind where shows are written and then with like 6 days they filmed it.
Right.
It probably had several weeks at least for filming. I don't know TV.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see where Larson would have gone had he not had to turn it into a TV show.
Yeah. I know movie of the weeks tended to get filmed very fast, but they still had plenty of time to more time than the 6 days to put a
back in those days
together.
he might have only had to do 2 a year.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s. So it would have been interesting that way. But yes, and like all good children's television, a mother has to die. So yes, so that's good. They hit that trope. But
right. Well, and the thing too is like this format that they wanted would be perfect today.
Yes.
It would be perfect today. They could do a 6-episode season, like Only Murders in the Building and stuff like that.
Right.
Just 6 episodes, and you got to wait 2 years for the next one.
Yeah.
It'd be perfect for today. It's just unfortunate that the timing was all wrong.
Correct. They couldn't.
And the timing was apparently all wrong anyway, because even back I found out through a friend of mine who made a comment about the pilot episode.
Okay.
The pilot episode was preempted by by the Jimmy Carter coming on about the Camp David Accords.
Okay.
And which is probably why we don't remember it, because we'd be like little kids, right? And then like Jimmy Carter would come on and my dad would get mad and chase us out of the room. So, we never got a chance to film. We probably hung around the corner just waiting, not realizing the global scape of what was going on, So
I don't think I was paying attention back then.
Yeah.
No. My dad would have enjoyed Jimmy Carter. He liked Carter, but so But he still would have chased us out of the room. I mean, although actually, it depends. Well, what night would it have aired? My dad probably would have been at work.
I think it was.
So-
I think it aired on a Friday, if I remember right. I could be wrong.
My mom would have been just like, "You kids go to bed. It's over.
That's
The
right.
show's over." Wait, no, Mama got interrupted. I don't remember that. But she would have been asleep on the
Yeah.
couch already.
Or
So.
like my mom
Yeah.
would watch shows like 7 times and never see the whole thing. I don't
Correct.
remember watching it
Yes,
because
my-
you got up halfway through it, and made dinner.
That is the classic. I'll tell you what. How many times did I have my mom? Did it take my mom to watch the movie Soap Dish?
Oh,
So I got to see it about 17 times, and then
Mhm.
this is my first time. No, Mom, no.
I guarantee though, if it was a Sean Connery movie, y'all starved.
Oh
I
yeah,
know that
yeah,
woman
oh
likes
yeah,
her Sean
yeah,
Connery.
she did. Yes, yes, yeah. Sunday night movie they stayed up for. That was that was a classic. Yeah, or their the classic John Wayne episodes too.
Mm.
So, but yeah,
Anyway.
no. So no, I like the whole mythology of it.
Mhm.
I mean, it's kind of hokey now, but not really, because I mean they did it in the they transported it to Greece in the remake. So
Yeah, again, this is stuff you got to watch like you watched it when you were a kid,
Yeah.
or you'll, So
Yeah.
I don't mind the hokiness.
No.
The special effects aren't the greatest, but we're not watching them,
Yeah.
expecting,
No.
perfect
And as
CGI.
and as a Doctor Who kid,
Yeah.
these are way better than Who. So
Yeah. Back in like 2003,
Mm-hmm.
2004, I was at Frank's newsstand in South Bend. I don't know if you were over there or not.
Yep.
Well, they had Frazetta mini posters,
Okay.
and they were pretty cheap. I think it was like $20 I paid for them. Well, I bought the Frank Frazetta Battlestar Galactica with all the girls running towards the spaceship. So like their butts are just strategically placed in
Yes.
just the right area. And he had some long boxes and stuff. And I was up there paying for it, and Frank's like, who I believe he's well gone now because he was sitting in the shop smoking the whole time we were talking. I hadn't been there since the mid '90s, and he's like, "Didn't you used to come in here a lot with a big guy who bought a lot of porn?" I'm just like,
Wait a minute. Now, audience,
not
not me, not this big guy.
The big guy knows who he is.
Yes.
We'll just leave it
Yeah.
at that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how the hell? I
Uh,
guess the dude bought so much porn that it's hard to forget your meal
No,
ticket.
right,
you know?
right,
It's
right.
like his sales went down after
True.
he stopped going there. On that note, let's talk about the other 2 episodes we watched.
Yes. So then we get to, I guess, the television series proper.
Yeah.
And so we start with the Lost Warrior, another lost item. So we go from Lost City, Lost Planet of the Gods to Lost Warrior.
Mhm.
And so 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 all right, I'll just say this. My childhood memory of this episode was, wow, this is one of the greatest episodes ever.
Yep.
Because how can you as a kid not love a damaged Cylon robot as a gunslinger in a Western town? I mean, it ticked off every box for me as a kid.
Same.
So, in my head, this was like, I was looking forward to this episode.
Same.
And good old Red Eye. I mean, it just as a kid who grew up on Westerns, it like I said, they really took. I mean, this is where they took space opera as Western to its logical conclusion and made it a Western.
Wagon train in space.
Yeah. But in watching it anew, well,
my thing about it is it's too over the top and too over your head. It's definitely a Western. It's not subtle about it at all. They're wearing like cowboy hats made out of tin with lights on them and stuff.
Yeah.
They could have dialed all that down, and you still would have got the melodrama of a Western out of it, in the same way that like the Seven Samurai is a Western, because the Seven Samurai paid homage to the Westerns that Kurosawa enjoyed from the States.
Right. pays homage to Shane.
This pays homage to Shane. This pays homage to a little bit of High Noon because Apollo wouldn't wear his guns to town, and Gary Cooper was a pacifist and wouldn't put his guns on because of the woman he was marrying. It was just too much, and it's not hard to understand why the series didn't go on any longer than it did, because when you go from something as epic as Lost Planet of the Gods to something that's just like we threw it together in a hurry, but yeah, as a kid, I loved the rogue gunslinging Cylon, and probably played him in the yard with my friends for all I can remember.
I just think you can tell that you can tell it was rushed. You can tell that they really didn't know. And of course, this could be my bias too in watching it. So it goes from epic Star Wars ripoff with galactic size plot and humanity to Planet of the Week Star Trek, but without the deep themes of Star Trek. So it's action adventure. It goes to just your run of the mill action adventure.
Yeah. They could have dialed up the melodrama. And dialed down the tin cowboy hats.
Right.
And it would have been a much better episode.
It's also a bit confusing, I think. You can tell that the mythology gets confused because it's a planet, it's not part of the 12 colonies.
Right.
So we've established in the movie episodes there were 12 colonies and a 13th one that is lost and goes to Earth. And so then all of a sudden we end up on a planet. It would have made sense if they were getting out of their galaxy and now they come, like Star Trek, come to a planet. They don't know it, don't know anything about it. But unfortunately, the planet knows all about them.
Right.
And so somehow this unknown planet suddenly has ties to colonial warriors. And so just some lines of dialogue might have helped out.
Yeah.
Even if the planet had been founded by a colonial warrior who during the war got lost and crash landed on the planet. I don't know, something.
Yeah. Well, these are the episodes that were filmed in 6 days.
Yes.
Written in a couple days, filmed in 6 days, slapped together. And it shows.
Well, and we're spoiled now. I mean, we're spoiled where we've got, you've got, Michael Straczynski plotting out Babylon 5, the entire 5-year saga, plotting it out, minus the terrible 4th season. But, and,
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Or you get, something like Breaking Bad, which might not have been plotted out completely, but clearly had a beginning and an end game in mind. Or
there's no doubt.
Or Lost, when they finally sat down after season 3 and said, okay, we got to plot out an end game here because we don't know what we're doing. And so this is back in episodic television. So we're just spoiled. We're so spoiled now to have, in addition to the episodes, an overarching theme and an overarching storyline and a thematic element, and it just doesn't have that. And so I'm just going to go with my childhood gut and just, I enjoyed space, damaged space Western with the damaged Cylon, kind of like Westworld, a little bit of Westworld, but I mean that even if they had there's so many simple ways to fix this one. So Cylon Raider during the war, gets lost, crashes on this planet, which was not connected to anyone in the colonies.
Right.
They don't know what a Cylon is.
Yeah.
He becomes, and then Apollo lands here on this weird planet where, oh my God, unbeknownst to him, there's a Cylon. That would have made more sense than the fact that the wife had a former colonial pilot husband and all that kind of garbage.
I don't even know if it was a planet, because I think it was like in an asteroid belt or something.
Something like that,
about there were planets the size of, or asteroids the size of planets and whatnot. Like, what if Yeah, this was just some stranded bunch of people, and like in the end, they'd have been like, take us with you.
Right.
Hey, we got more mouths to feed, but come on, we're going to the
Correct.
promised
Right.
land.
Yeah. Or this is the outer rim where the 12 colonies were civilization.
Mhm.
So the 12 colonies were kind of, if you're making allusions to Star Wars,
Why not?
why not? Would be Coruscant and the inner planets, and this is the outer rim.
Yeah.
Just something, some kind of throw us a little bone of how that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I again, really, that's my adult TV
Mhm.
critic mind, as
Yeah.
opposed to as a kid, it did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Gave me a Western. So
Yeah.
and a cool shootout with a Cylon.
Mhm.
I mean, even the gratuitous, even the Cylon has somehow picked up all the tropes of Western mythology of I've got to put my hand by my gun, I got to unbuckle it.
He's
Even though
with his hands,
yeah,
he's a robot though.
yeah, even though previous to this, Cylons just pull out their gun and shoot.
Yeah.
Here he's got the holster, he's got everything.
All right, well, let's move on to
And now we get the next one is the Long Patrol,
which sounds like a cool like World War II TV series.
Yes, and Belisario is known for his World War II analogies, and this definitely has Starbuck gets an experimental Viper jet, which and it just straight out of World War II. Just you can tell it's experimental pilot. He has his own uniform. He has his own fancy helmet. But then it so that would have
happens.
That in and of itself would have been a good plot. Go Starbuck, take this experimental plane, totally stripped down, go as far as you can. But they could have loaded it with sensors. Let's see if we can find life as we go along and make sure we've cleared a path where there's no silence.
Right, like because they broke through their known galaxy. Correct,
they broke through their.
They're now an undiscovered country.
Yes, that would have worked, and maybe like at the last minute. He thinks everything's clear. He turns around to come home. The Cylons come. In order, he has to decide whether he's going to sacrifice himself to not lead the Cylons back to the fleet. Apollo, something that could have just been a story in and of itself. Somehow, though, he ends up running into, I guess what Joss Whedon stole for Serenity and Firefly. He runs into
Joss Whedon stole something.
Well, actually, it reminded me more of the characters from Battle Beyond the Stars.
Battle Beyond the Stars is a good example of a space western. I mean, granted, George Pafar's hat.
Yes.
But that's a good example of what a space western would look like. We all know Star Wars was a space western.
Correct. So you got a bootlegger being chased by an enforcer. That's what they call it on there. So there's an enforcer ship and a bootlegger ship. And Starbuck gets involved because he doesn't like seeing an unarmed merchant ship being attacked, not realizing it's a bootlegger, an unarmed merchant ship being attacked by somebody. So he even though he's supposed to be, he kind of loses. He's probably not the best pilot. He's easily distracted. Yeah, which he proves in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
Because there's also the underlying plot of who will Starbuck fall in love with.
It's like a Three's Company episode.
Yes, with a blonde and a brunette. Yes. And there's the plot of the computer in the experimental spaceship also being a woman who's attracted to Starbuck.
He's got 3 of them.
He's got 3. So so anyway, so he kind of lands with saves the guy, there's no weapons in the plane, so he does a maneuver that blows the enforcer off course. Then he lands with the guy, and turns out the guy is smuggling ambrosia, which is their
booze.
Yeah, their booze.
Yeah. Which the Galactica is in short supply of.
Correct. According to Starbuck.
Yeah.
And so, they're Romulan ale basically, and so, hijinks ensue. So we lose the whole experimental plane plot because the smuggler beats him up and then decides to somehow recognizes it's an experimental ship.
It almost becomes, in a lot of ways, these episodes are about as ridiculous as like Lost in Space.
Yes.
Where everything is just like, taken for granted and
Mm-hmm.
to advance the plot.
Yes, yeah, there is no right. There's no logic at all, and so
The,
you
the
get
original Lost in Space, not the Netflix
no, no,
series,
no, no,
which
no.
was great. Once they stopped being scary and started being silly, because they were scaring kids, apparently.
It was kind of
It was.
yeah.
I mean, Dr. Smith went from being, like,
Ruthless.
you know,
Yes, yeah,
you
yes.
know,
You,
you
yes,
four-headed booby.
yes, you believe. So here's what happened. So we're watching the show. And of course, again, our bias showing. So again, we're looking for it reminds you of Star Trek. It's a planet of the month, planet of the week. And so you're like, oh, there's smugglers and there's a penal colony and there's people who are paying the debts of their fathers and grandfathers off, and everyone sort of has an Irish
Yeah,
accent.
it's like a planet of
Yeah, planet
Irishmen.
Irish people. And we're like, oh, so maybe they're doing some sort of indentured servant, allegory.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
debtor's
debtor's
prison.
prison, British debtor's prison, or Northern Ireland allegory, or maybe even they got it confused and
Yeah,
it's mixed with an Australian penal colony and
something Star
something
Trek.
very something Star Trekky and deep. And then it just hit me 5-10 minutes after the show's over. Wait a minute. No, no, no. Everyone's Irish because they're making booze
And they're all drunk.
and they're all drunk.
Yep.
It's like stereotype. So it's just terrible. It just made the episode even worse.
Well, the smuggler, he's a shorter guy. He's
Yeah.
dressed in green.
Yeah. Hey, you took me like you. I'm gonna steal your ship so I can smuggle me Lucky Charms. And it would have been see if like this had been its own plot.
Mhm.
Somehow Starbuck lands on a planet, discovers ambrosia, decides to smuggle it. Then he realizes he becomes a prisoner and does the Star Trekky thing where everyone's imprisoned thinking they're making ambrosia for the wars and they really aren't. It's
Yeah.
just how the people have maintained control of them.
Yeah.
Maintain control. So that would have been like a good plot, but it's just kind of like incidental. Like, oh yeah, he frees everyone. The ambrosia, but yet they're all aware of the colonies. They're all aware of the war.
Yeah.
They made ambrosia for the war, even though this is a planet beyond the no. As Apollo stately states at the beginning of the episode, and same thing with Lauren Green. We're going past the asteroid dust to a place, but Boxy, we're going to where our ships have never been before. And Boxy's like, yes, I'm going to stand on the bridge and be annoying because my grandpa's here and my monkey's here too. Yeah. So we go from that to this planet being well aware of the colonies and the war. However, so with much apologies to Donald Belsaar, as we are berating this episode for its incoherence, finally at the very end, Lorette Sprang, the socialite turned medical assistant,
working, it's the stripper working her way through medical school.
Well, that's what you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, she's the stripper with the heart of gold.
Mhm.
She mentions that I think she uses the word Aryan. Aryan, but it's got to be spelled like Arion or something.
I don't think they thought that through.
No, they did not think that through. And so, but she says that, oh yeah, my father, they're speaking that language. My father, he was a smuggler. He dealt that kind of thing. And then Starbucks says later, oh, these are penal planets and smugglers, and we must have forgotten after the war. So they did bail it out. Unlike the other episode, they bailed this one out in the end, where at least you get the understanding that even though they, in their minds, the civilized people have moved beyond the known universe, there's still a lot out there, and so. That's all we're asking. That we're just connect a couple dots for us, and so at least they did that.
I mean, I get that they have to keep episodic TV that will be put in rotation.
Yes,
self-contained.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to reference a show that happened before. So at least keep us up. At least you repeat the same themes through each episode to keep the audience, not being lost.
Well, right, and that's the problem with. I mean, this was back in the day when everyone's going for syndication, and so. You don't know how the episodes will be aired, and so you can't do a Breaking Bad. You can't do where you have to watch every single episode to know what's going on. And so I get it. So at least this one, thankfully, they threw a Hail Mary at the very end
Yeah.
and gave us a really good explanation
Yeah.
that these prisoners have been forgotten by the colonies and
Mhm.
therefore trapped by the enforcers.
The thing is, when it was designed to be like TV movies, a
Mhm.
couple of them a year,
Mhm.
and then it got turned into a series, and they were like so worried they wouldn't have enough plot to fill up the
Yeah.
holes. They have too many plots to fill up the
Correct,
holes.
correct.
It's like they could have spread it out a little,
Yeah.
just like we were saying earlier, just use chunks of each story,
Mm-hmm.
and there's your episode.
Yeah.
And
Because then the Cylons show up in the end and blast the place. I mean,
to
like
remind you
to remind,
you're watching
yes, yeah,
Star Trek,
Battlestar Galactica, yeah,
Battlestar Galactica.
yeah. This could have been 3 episodes. You could have had a space heavy, him experimenting with the ship episode and used all your money for the special effects fight and trying to fight the Cylons without guns would have been an interesting episode.
Mhm.
You could have had the Irish-esque planet, which Starbuck or somebody else lands on and freeze because they didn't realize they were prisoners. And even with the joke in the end where the ambrosia explodes, that's fine.
Yeah.
Could have done that. And then you could have done a bottle episode with him just having hijinks with the 2 women.
Yeah.
You could have saved, there's where you save all your money. You just have it be in the hallway with the 2 bedrooms. back and forth.
Come and knock.
And there should have been a space Mrs. Roper. It's like they were still in the mode of we're writing movies. But
Oh yeah, and yes,
Yeah.
they were cramming 2 episodes into one episode.
yeah, which they didn't need to do.
Yeah, and then neither episode is
Which they could have
very
even done,
fleshed
right?
out.
Saga, all right? Because Saga I'm sorry, the Lost Planet, was 2 plots and 2 parts, so
Mhm.
you needed it to flesh it out. But this one's just 1 episode; you didn't need to do it.
Mhm.
And so maybe they'll figure that out as we watch later on. So this is like this is right after they ordered it to series, so I'm sure these were rushed.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap this episode up. We're gonna keep watching these.
Yeah.
We might interject something else on our Tuesday night viewing,
Mm-hmm.
but for now we're
committed to Battlestar Galactica.
traveling forward with a ragtag bunch of episodes.
2 ragtag reviewers.
All right. On that note, I'm Paul.
I'm Mark.
And this has been the Return of the Son of the Show.